All right, guys, so check it out. I'm gonna give you 10 total of my power exercises for MMA. Let's get into it. All right, so when it comes down to power production, remember, mixed martial arts, it's a mixed modality sport. There's plenty of ranges of motion, planes of motion that you're gonna be doing and performing inside of the cage. So we wanna get very good and efficient at producing force fast from all different planes of motion and all different ranges of motion. So we're gonna be using a few variations, and we're also gonna be using some implements like a medicine ball, a landmine, or a barbell with a landmine in it. And you're also gonna be utilizing your own body weight, and we're gonna finish off with some box variations for explosive power, but also redirecting force. That's gonna be really good when you're chain wrestling and you're transitioning from striking to takedowns and vice versa. So first thing we're gonna do is med ball variations. We're gonna work through the upper body. I also like to throw in dynamic movements with my med ball variation. So whether that be a switch step or whether it be a cross step, something like that, that is going to get you dynamically moving and then be able to produce power with the medicine ball. Another thing about the medicine ball is that it's ballistic, so you don't have to decelerate the movement, meaning you can explode through the entire range of motion when you're doing this exercise. So the first one we're gonna do is just a standard overhand throw. So a backhand in striking. So if I'm here, I'm gonna set the ball up right by my chest. You guys have seen me do this probably in other videos, but all I'm doing is I'm making sure that I'm generating force from the ground up. So I'm taking my back foot and using that sequence of force. So from the ground and linking that all the way through to the outer extremities. So it's called kinetic linkage. So I'm gonna start from my back foot. I'm gonna produce force by pressing down into the ground, and it's going to transfer up the leg into the hip, into the core, and then into the outer extremities as you go to throw the ball. Again, you wanna take a medicine ball. For males, I would say anywhere between 12 to 16 pounds, right? That's gonna be on the heavier side. If you're looking for more speed, then you're gonna go 10-pound med ball. For women, anything 8 pounds to 6 pounds is good. If you're gonna go a little bit heavier, then you would go 10 pounds. We're gonna take the med ball right up by the chest. Again, I don't wanna see you throw the ball like a baseball, right? So you don't wanna externally rotate the shoulder and internally rotate. The goal is almost like a press, right? So I'm pushing the ball through this range here. And as I go to push, I'm rotating my hips, right? The hips lead and then the arm follows. So I'm using my other hand just to hold it up. And then I'm gonna punch and press as I go to rotate. So I'm here, punch and press. So it's all through here, internally rotating the hip and throwing it through. Like everything, when you throw a punch, you gotta think of reciprocity or reciprocation. When I punch, I'm pulling the opposite arm back. So the shoulder goes back, the forward arm that's throwing the punch is going forward, obviously, right? So I'm pulling and pushing, using my lat on the far side to activate, to pull my shoulder back, right? Same thing with the med ball, okay? Sets and reps, you're gonna do around 3 to 5 sets, roughly 3 to 5 repetitions, making sure that you're getting an adequate amount of speed, but you're also producing a good amount of force. All right, guys, real quick before we get back to the video, I wanted to make the announcement that yes, I've been nominated once again for the 8th time Trainer of the Year for the World MMA Awards. Thank you to Fighters Only Magazine and everyone who has nominated me once again. If you want to show your support and vote for the Trainer of the Year, click the link down below in the description and I can win it for the 6th time. So would truly appreciate your support by clicking it down below and voting on whoever, along with all those other nominees. So make sure you go ahead and check it out and let's get back to the video. Okay, so the underhand throw, we're gonna set ourselves up square. So instead of blading, we're gonna be slightly squared up. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna rotate into the hip. So I'm gonna load the hip here, get it in this underhand position where the ball is in my forearms here, on my forearms. And then I'm gonna rotate through and drive my hip to toss the ball forward, right? So similar if like you got somebody on the cage and you're dipping down to rain some uppercuts, some body shots, so on and so forth. So I'm using my hip and exploding through into that extension and driving through. The good thing about the med ball, like I said, you don't have to decelerate. You're throwing it all the way through. All right, here we go. So taking the med ball, I'm gonna dip down, toss. And as I'm doing that, I'm throwing my hip in there and I'm again contracting my glute to open up and get hip extension. All right, same thing other side. Loading the hip, load the hip, and then driving through, okay? One more time. Okay. Another thing that you could do to make it more advanced is just do like a hop step here, boom, and then throw through, right? Just create more dynamic movements to make it correlate over into the fight game. Not to say that you totally have to simulate, but we still want to get into the proper range of motion, the planes of motion, and then again, the speed of the sport is going to be important too. Same thing, 3 to 5 sets, 3 to 5 reps. Okay, so the scoop toss is one of the ones that I like to do, especially like when you have low ceilings. I also like to do an overhead toss if we are outside, or if we have high ceilings. An overhead toss to the rear to get triple extension is going to be really good. But this one too as well simulates getting those underhooks. So we're, again, shooting for the underhook. We're driving the hands up, getting in a good position to get a body lock, and then take your opponent down, whatever have you. So I'm gonna take the med ball. With this one, I'm not only going to hinge and toss the ball forward, I'm actually gonna jump forward too as well and let my momentum drive me forward, right? So it's a full body movement, but we're initiating it with the upper body, right? And let the lower body kind of follow through. So hinge and then throw through, right? And obviously make sure that you land in a stable position, right? Elbows in. Okay, this med ball can be a little bit heavier. You're looking for males 16 to 20 pounds, females maybe 10 to 12 pounds, depending on their strength level. The goal in any power movement is, when you look at power, it's force times velocity, right? So you gotta be able to produce force with a good amount of velocity to improve your power production. So make sure that you have a large enough or heavy enough ball to be able to do both of those. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the landmine punch press with a clean. So just like a traditional Olympic lift where you have to clean, catch, and then press up overhead, the good thing about the landmine is it's in that 45-degree angle. So if you have athletes with, you know, not the greatest joint prerequisites to get overhead, or they lack the ability to get overhead, you can use the landmine to still get that particular range that's necessary for improving on punching power. And then also you're doing still a clean and press variation. So what I'm gonna do though is throw in the transverse plane and work on rotational power too as well, for striking sports, for combat sports, all in all. So first thing we do when we set up is we're gonna go ahead and stagger our feet. Now, I like to make sure that my shin, the inside of my shin, is on the same line as the end of the barbell. So as I come down, I'm gonna hinge, load the hamstrings, and then grab with the opposite side arm. So if my right leg is up, my left arm is gonna grab for the clean. When I go to clean, I'm gonna pull my elbow as high as possible and then feed it to the other arm. From there, I'm gonna like basically open up my hip, almost like a B step here, and then punch through. So I'm here, grab, and then punch through. The backside leg is obviously going to rotate and pivot to throw your punch. The biggest thing is that you have to clean it up high enough to where you get a good transition and feed it to the other arm. If you don't do that, then you're gonna be off balance and you're gonna be muscling up the landmine. Now, if that is the case, lighten up the load so that you can be explosive and grab it at the right position. When you go to pull, you wanna grab it right at that chest level, all right? Nothing higher, nothing lower. All right, here we go. So we're going to extend the hips and pull and then touch, all right? So as I go to extend, I'm gonna feed it through. Boom. So you're getting a little bit of back work with the pull, high pull. You're getting obviously some core, and then you're gonna finish off with the press in that punching fashion, all right? Same thing, 3 to 5 sets, roughly 3 to 5 repetitions. You can also throw on a band to get accommodated resistance at the top so you don't have to decelerate, or you can have a partner stand there, make sure they can catch, but you can let it go and throw it. Now, don't recommend that if you have a dumbass partner or a coach that can't catch. All right, so now we're gonna move on to more of a core biased type of movement. So windshield wipers with the landmine. The way I like to do the windshield wiper is I still wanna load my hip. So as I go to bring the barbell down into that hip region, I'm gonna load the hip and then extend and bring it all the way through to the other side. And again, loading the other hip there. So you can take a barbell, it doesn't have to be heavy, but we wanna get to that position, load, you can slightly bend the arm that's inside. So if I'm going to the left hip, my left arm is slightly bent, and then I'm gonna drive my hip through and then pull to the other side. I don't want you to go to mid-range. I want you to go all the way around and then decelerate on this one. The deceleration component of it has its benefits because at that point, when you go to, let's say, load into the hip, you're able to explode out of there and produce force from that static position or to redirect force, whether you're throwing your punches, throwing a flurry, and then have to dip down and redirect. So we still want to have that in there too as well. Another thing that I like is that it stimulates the core, the obliques, and it maintains stability as you're being explosive. So you still have to staple yourself down into the ground and create torque to where you have a good support system, right? So grab the ground, make sure that you're creating that external torque to turn on the hips. So as you go to explode out of there, you're in a good stable position to produce force. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the lower body, biasing out the lower body to a degree. So we're gonna be working through lateral force displacement, vertical, horizontal, right? And we're gonna throw a rotational component in there too as well. Now I'm using the med ball for these lateral skater bounds. Obviously, when I go to load, I wanna be able to load the hip. So it's giving me a little bit more resistance and weight to load into the hip and redirect force. Another thing is just gonna throw a little bit of core in there, obviously, right? Because you gotta maintain a good position as you go to produce force laterally. So with this one, it's gonna look like this. You're just basically gonna load the hip, and as I go to push off, I'm gonna load single leg. I'm gonna bring it up and then bring it down. Opposite side, outside the hip, loading the hip every time, and pushing apart, left to right, okay? Another thing that you wanna do is you wanna be as fast as you can off the ground. This is gonna be more of a plyometric type of movement because it's a fast amortization phase, meaning the time it takes you to get on the ground and off the ground is important. So we want that minimal and want that fast as possible so that you can get that plyometric effect. 3 to 5 sets, 3 to 5 repetitions on both sides, standard across the board. All right, so now we're gonna throw in more of a drop down component. So we're working on, again, the stretch reflex. We're working on being able to absorb and redirect force. So I'm gonna drop down off a box. It doesn't have to be a high box. It could be 20 inches, 24 inches. The higher the box, the more force is gonna come down on your extremities. So we wanna make sure that, one, you're not taking too much time when you hit the ground and redirecting force. So go to a box that is good enough for you to still stay fast and off the ground as fast as possible, right? So this is a form of shock method training. Drop downs or drop jumps, anything like that is going to help with the redirection of force. Again, when you're talking about combat sports and MMA, when I'm looking to take down an individual, right, I wanna be able to get into the position and then redirect wherever I'm going. So if I wanna transition from, let's say, a double or a single to a double, and I'm flaring them out and I'm trying to take them down, the goal is to make sure that you're able to transition fast and efficient. So this is another way we can do that, all right? So here, I'm just gonna drop down, take the step, and as I step, I'm gonna load the left side hip, and then I'm gonna push off towards the right side. Down, push, and go, okay? Really good for unilateral strength, right? When I land, I'm landing on 2 feet, but then I'm pushing off concentrically with the single leg. Flex the feet as you come down, boom, and then hard push out, okay? This can be done about 2 to 3 sets, and you're looking right around 3 reps each side. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and do a unilateral version. So I'm gonna split stance, and mainly I'm gonna push off the front leg right here. So this back leg is just there for support. I'm gonna drop down in that counter movement jump. So I am getting a stretch reflex, and the goal is to get vertical force now. So I'm gonna jump up. The box is there to land lightly. Don't think about jumping onto the box, think about jumping up and then just floating onto the box. So a lot of people jump up just to get there and they bring their knees up too fast. So we wanna jump up full vertical, try to get full triple extension before you have to bring the knees up and land on the box, all right? So dropping down, boom, and then going up. Remember, faster down, faster up. So think about a basketball. If I throw a basketball down fast, it's gonna pop up high. If I drop it down slow, it's not gonna pop up as high. So let's make that happen, right? We're coming down, boom, up, and then stick. You should never be lower than the position of where you jump from. So if I start in this position, that's as low as I wanna be when I go to land on the box. All right, just something that you could take in mind. Again, get that stretch reflex, drive the arms down, redirect force. 3 to 5 sets, 3 to 5 reps on each side. Moving on, still split stance, still unilateral, but now we're going into horizontal force displacement. So I'm jumping forward, right? I still want triple extension, but the goal isn't to get up for height, the goal is to get out for distance. So this is gonna definitely transfer over to blast takedowns, things like that, because we wanna see that displacement of force going forward, right? So here, same concept, counter movement with the triple extension. Counter movement jump, get the stretch reflex, jump forward, land on 2 feet. Drop down, boom, and stick, okay? Try to drive your hips as forcefully as possible forward and then let the legs just swing through to land in center of mass. You're here, you drop down, push, and then stick, okay? Another thing that you wanna be mindful of is to make sure that when you go to throw your hips through, you're not trying to hike your knees up too high. Like you want your heels and your feet to kind of almost drag through the ground because the goal is to stay as low but push out force as much as possible, okay? 3 to 5 sets, again, 3 to 5 repetitions. All right, last one of the 10 exercises, and this one is something that we can transfer in, especially getting closer to the fight. Now, all of these are a little bit more general, and then we can get more specific. So when I get closer to a fight in fight camp, we'll throw these in as we do multi-directional movements. So with this one, it's gonna be a bilateral stance, but we're facing one way, and then we're gonna jump, do that broad jump and rotate the body. So I'm gonna load the hip, push off and rotate through, landing forward. This is another variation or exercise that you can use for testing, right? So if you're a coach and you have fighters, this is something that I use for a testing parameter, or at least laying a foundation and a baseline number so that I can see how well we're progressing with this power movement, okay? So anyways, we're gonna load the hip, we're gonna push off, rotate the body in midair and still try to get as far distance as possible. Load, push and go. Right, so you still got that rotation, right? You still gotta maintain position and you still have to produce force, right? So same thing, you're gonna load the hip, pushing off, rotate. Also wanna make sure that you're landing on 2 feet in the center of mass. So feet are right underneath the hips when you land. You can do 2 to 3 sets, 2 to 3 repetitions on both sides. Now, since you stayed the entire time, I'm gonna give you one more bonus. So now we're gonna add a little bit to that, right? So as you can see, if you ever see me do any of my videos when I'm training, I'm basically combining some of these, right? Because I do want you to be able to not only be confident in your ability to produce force, hold position, maintain that position, and then redirect it in any other direction. So bilateral, broad jump, lateral push, vertical, right? So I'm here, load, push, right? Lateral, boom, up, and stick. All right, so again, when you're talking about transitions from either striking, takedowns, and then switching up your takedowns from a single to blast double or running the pipe, whatever it is, you gotta be able to maintain position and still be able to explode out of it. So one more time, something that you guys can play with if you wanna go a little bit more advanced. Push, 2 feet, land on 2, right? Push off 1, push off 2, land on 2. Easy. Stick. All right, so there you have it. I gave you 10 and then 1 for a bonus. All right, so make sure that you put this together inside of your programming. If you don't have a program, you can check out my very first MMA program, Fight Ready. I'm pretty sure most athletes that I've worked with have gone through this. Some of the coaches that I mentor have gone through this with their actual athletes. It's something that I would say that holds really high reward if you do it the right way. These exercises are inside of Fight Ready, so make sure you go ahead and click the description down below. You can find it there. If you wanna go ahead and train with one of us, whether it be Wyatt or myself, one-on-one online, go ahead, click the link down below too as well. If you like this video, show me some love, hit the like button. If you're gonna leave comments, don't leave some dumb shit. And I'll see you guys next time. Which one I'm going with? Which one I'm going with? Peace.